Today we're going to unpack a really powerful ancient story. It gets at a fundamental question: is what you see with your own two eyes the only thing that's real? It's this incredible story about two people who are looking at the exact same threat, but somehow they see two completely different worlds.
So, let's set the scene. I want you to imagine you're waking up just as the sun is rising. You step outside and your heart just sinks. Your entire city, your home, is completely surrounded by a hostile army. We're talking horses, war chariots, the whole 9 yards. They showed up in the middle of the night and there is absolutely no way out. Well, that's exactly the situation we find in our source text.
And this is the very first thing we hear. It's not a battle cry, it's not a call to arms, it's a shout of pure, unfiltered terror from a young servant in this ancient city of Dothan. He just cries out, "Oh my Lord, what are we going to do?" You can just feel the hopelessness in his voice. He sees the army, he sees the weapons, and for him, the conclusion is simple. It's over. What's really wild here is the sheer scale of this whole operation. Because this massive Syrian army, they weren't sent to conquer a city. They were sent to capture just one man, the prophet Elisha. See, according to the story, Elisha had this uncanny ability to know every single secret plan the Syrian king cooked up, which meant the king's plans kept failing. To the king, this one prophet was a bigger threat than an entire opposing army.
Okay, so this is where the story gets really interesting. You have one single event, but two totally different ways of seeing it. On the one hand, you have the servant's raw, understandable panic. But on the other hand, you have his master, Elisha, who is just bafflingly calm. So how is it possible for two people to see the exact same crisis so differently?
So right here, this is the conflict at the very heart of the story. The servant's view is just based on the facts on the ground, right? There's an army, we're surrounded, we're doomed. But Elisha, he looks at the same scene and sees a totally different math. He makes a statement that seems to just fly in the face of all logic.
Can you just imagine hearing that? Your heart is pounding out of your chest, and your boss turns to you and says, "Don't be afraid. The ones on our side are more than the ones on their side." It makes no sense. It completely contradicts everything the servant can see with his own two eyes. So what in the world does Elisha see?
So this tension, this mystery, it all builds to the story's incredible climax. And it's a moment where everything is about to shift, not because the enemy disappears, but because a reality that was hidden in plain sight is about to be revealed. Now, Elisha's response here is just fascinating. He doesn't pray for the bad guys to get struck by lightning. He doesn't pray for a secret escape tunnel to magically appear. He prays for something so much simpler and yet so much more profound. He just asks God to change his servant's perception. Lord, open his eyes so that he can see.
And then, boom, the reveal. The servant's eyes are opened, and he looks again. Now, the Syrian army is still there. They haven't gone anywhere. But now he sees something else. The entire mountain is filled with a heavenly army, horses and chariots made of fire, a divine force that was there the whole time, totally invisible to him just moments before.
So what an incredible story, right? But now let's unpack the big idea that our source material is really getting at here. It argues that the servant's initial reaction wasn't just fear. It was a kind of blindness.
The source calls this spiritual blindness. It's basically a state where you only see and trust the physical world, what the text calls your carnal eyes. It's what your natural senses tell you. Now, the problem isn't that what the servant saw was fake. That Syrian army was very real. The problem was that it was an incomplete picture.
And according to the source, this kind of limited vision, it has real consequences. It leads to the kind of fear and despair that the servant felt. But interestingly, it can also lead to the total opposite, a kind of false pride, this idea that you can handle it all on your own. When you're in that state, you really only see two options: give up or fight a battle you know you can't win. You're completely trapped by what's visible. The source uses this quote to really hammer the point home. It says that to the natural man, the person who's operating with this spiritual blindness, Elisha's calm confidence that more are with us sounds like absolute foolishness. It's nonsense because you can't count it or measure it. These things, the source argues, have to be spiritually discerned, seen with a whole different kind of sight. So if that's what blindness looks like, what's the alternative?
let's explore the flip side. Let's talk about what the source calls the power of sight and what it really means to have your eyes open. And this is a really, really important clarification that the source makes. This spiritual sight, it didn't just poof the heavenly army into existence, it simply revealed it. It was already there. Faith, in this way of thinking, is like flipping on a light switch. It just illuminates a deeper reality that was present and active the whole time.
You can really trace the servant's journey here step by step. He starts with a visible threat and pure fear. Then he hears words of faith that challenge that fear. That leads to a prayer, which leads to a revelation, a new reality. And the final result? His fear is just gone. It's replaced with peace and confidence. His physical situation didn't change one bit, but because his vision changed, everything changed for him.
And this is the end result. This is what that new vision feels like. The source uses this verse from Isaiah to capture that feeling. That frantic cry of, "What shall we do?" is totally replaced by this quiet, confident trust. The terror just evaporates and peace takes its place.
All right, to wrap all this up, our source text takes this whole idea of a saving vision and connects it to its own final theological point. So the author argues that from a Christian worldview, this ultimate saving vision is found when you look at the cross. The idea is that just like the servant saw God's overwhelming power on that mountain, a person with open eyes can see God's mercy and power at work in what might otherwise look like a moment of total defeat.
And it all comes together with this final quote from the Gospel of John, which pretty much summarizes the entire explainer. The message is pretty clear. What we are able to see is directly connected to what we are willing to believe. In this framework, belief comes before sight.
So in the end, this story is about so much more than ancient armies and chariots of fire. It's really about our own perception. It suggests that surrounding all of our visible struggles and problems, there might be other realities at play, another dimension that our senses just can't pick up. And that leaves us with a pretty big question. Beyond what our eyes can see, what are the invisible forces, whether they're principles or beliefs or powers, that are truly shaping our world and our lives right now?